Hey, asshole.
Wear your fucking mask.
Welcome to GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
Good evening. Has anybody heard that water fountain lately? Anyway, welcome back to another episode of Gay Talk 2.0, an LGBT podcast streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where you can listen live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can do so by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. Now, forgive me, I have a lot to read, and a couple of drinks in, so this might be a little difficult for this little Latin boy. Here we go. So today we're going to welcome David Adjmi. He's the author of Lot 6, a memoir, in where he recounts his tumultuous, told ya, his
Already started.
tumultuous search for identity with the same dazzling skill that that has propelled him to dizzying heights in the theater world. A closeted Syrian Sephardic Jew growing up in a gossipy, insular Brooklyn community in the 1970s and 80s, David was increasingly desperate to recreate himself. So he turned to art for clues on who to become. Spanning decades, this vibrant chronicle unspools what he calls a
Dickensian?
Dickensian. See, I told
Dickensian?
Dickensian. There you go. Story of self-invention inside a complicated framework of friendship and family. See, I told you it was going to be a very, 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 very tough thing to read. Anyway, my name is Tom, and I'm your host. And as always, I'm here in the room with all of the amazing co-hosts that join us, except Elsie. She's not here today, so I'm going to start with the first one.
Hey, y'all. Nick or Trish.
And
Good to be with you guys. It's Chris.
welcoming you all to the Drunk
Dish. Not me.
Oh, she's sober. Yeah, It's going to be a tongue twister today. But either way, I'm excited for tonight's guest. Lot 6 is a lot of, there's a lot of craziness in it. And, and you can relate in the sense that we all go through that sense of self-discovery and, a period in life where you're trying to find yourself. And so I'm really interested to see what David has to say about the book. So anyway, that'll happen on the second half of the show. There's so much to cover. We have stories. We actually do. But I'm going to kick it over to my boys because, I do need to know what's happening in their lives. And it's been a week since we last published an episode. So I'll start off with Nick. Nick, darling, how are you?
Why me?
Because you have
Why
all
not?
the time in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Unemployment. No, I had a nice weekend. I went away. I went to visit my friend Paul's family, and we hung out at the pool and had lobster and clams, and it was wonderful, and it was relaxing. And
I would have died.
yeah, no, it was really nice. But I
literally would have died, right? Because you had a lot of clams and
oh no, yeah, you
oysters.
would have
Yeah,
died.
I would have died.
Yeah. But
hungry.
I also got since we talked last week, 4 potential job offers
That's
without
right.
applying.
That's right.
So I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm also feeling really excited about taking the summer off. So I will be doing that.
Yeah, so I mean, we had this conversation before. I said, you've been nonstop going for 7 years.
7 years.
Right.
I've been nonstop since Matt died, and that was in 2000 and what?
Well, I'm talking about at your previous position over at Longworth,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You've been nonstop going, giving 150% for 7 years. There's nothing wrong with taking a little bit of time for you to sort of kind of regroup, find your groove, and go back out there, right?
Also, I've never been able to just not. That's what I'm so excited about. It's I don't have to
Exactly.
for a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so you just have to do what you have to do, and I support you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I told you to take even longer. I was like, bitch, take 6 months.
Oh, no.
Do it. And he was like, no, I can't do that. It'll just drive me bananas.
I will go crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
But in not as fun news, I have a family member has COVID.
I know, and that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it in depth or no?
No.
Let's just say it's someone who we love dearly, and we're wishing a speedy recovery. COVID is nothing to mess with. You know, when you think about how many people we've lost to COVID-19 over the past, I was going to say over the past year, but honestly, it hasn't even been 4 months.
But like,
And that's the scary part, right?
all of these fucking states that are opening up so quick, that is the fucking problem. And just shut it back down. Just shut it the fuck back down.
And the
And everybody's like, oh, well, you know, in those states, they're like, meh, whatever, it's fine. Like, everything's fine. I'm like, clearly it's fucking not.
Right.
It's scaring me because, you know, even when I drive down, so our favorite hotspot, right? When we go down, you know, I always love going down to dive bar. And, you know, when I drive by there on my way to the supermarket, I'm seeing people, whether you're outside or in the bar, with no mask on whatsoever. And I say to myself, you know, we're not going to get rid of this. And actually, when you think about the tri-state area, Connecticut, New England,
New Jersey,
New Jersey, you're thinking
New
about
York.
New York. These are states that the cases are trending down and that we're going in the right direction, but I fear that we're going to revert because people have a false sense of security now in regards to COVID and the things that they still should be doing that they're not.
Well, hopefully the mistakes of these southern states will really open the eyes of those people who are starting to doubt this. And when you look at Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and I believe it's Greg, I know his last name's Abbott, the governor of Texas, they both said that they will not shut down the state again. Then you see these cases going up in
one day.
Exactly.
9,000.
Nearly at an exponential rate. And just today, they're issuing face covering ordinance in certain parts of Florida. So they are realizing, oh shit, we fucked up. But I'm wondering to see if they're going to roll back. I mean, because even New York is rolling back on their phase 4, where, you know, gyms can open up, movie theaters and stuff. They're rolling it back because we're seeing what's happening in these large gatherings.
Look at California. California was one of the first states to report a COVID case. And it was one of the states that jumped on with very hardball measures to ensure that they would, you know, have a successful transition from COVID to, you know, after, or how would I say, post-COVID. And they're starting to see a trend go up after they started opening businesses because people really are ignoring all of the ideal protocols that are known in place to protect not only you but other people from getting COVID. And you know, it's sad to say, but you know, I think that, you know, we didn't even like flatten the curve with the first wave. We're still in the first wave, and that first wave is still going.
And just like tsunami, sometimes the first wave is nowhere near the strongest.
Yeah.
Sometimes the fifth wave can be the absolute most destructive because people put their guards down, they believe it's over, and then boom, reality check. And I was thinking about this. Well, one, when you look at the most powerful person in the country, let alone the world, obviously the president, when he and the vice president and most of the people in his cabinet push science aside, and they just believe that this can somewhat go away. I kind of thought of this political cartoon the other day. I don't know if I saw it or if I just thought about it, but I could just picture someone drawing Donald Trump wearing a mask, but the mask is only over his eyes.
Clearly, that's evident. It's been
That's exactly what it is. As long as you know you
beginning.
don't see it, you forget about it, it goes away. That's all that he thinks is going to happen.
I mean, as cases climbed, I remember going back to the month of March. Cases were climbing, and he was still claiming that there were only 17 cases in the U.S., when clearly we were well over the 5,000 case mark at that point. And to think, we're only in June, and 1.5 million Americans have already died of COVID. Oh, excuse me, 1.5.
I was like, not that much.
No, 1.5 thousand, 125,000 people. So 125, between 125 and
Math is hard.
150,000 people have died of COVID, and we have 2.5 million people infected in this country.
Yeah, as of now, it's 128,000.
So it's
deaths.
scary. It's scary. And do what you got to do. But you know what? In the end, no one is going to protect you the way you protect yourself. So if you're out there, carry your hand sanitizer if you must. I don't care if it looks like a bottle of freaking vodka. I drink it. But do so. And wear your mask.
Wear your mask, wash your hands frequently, and also don't follow this stupid rhetoric that the president put out there like, oh, summer's coming, the warm kills the virus, because you should see there's a surge going on right now in Mexico, especially the most heavily
Florida.
populated. Well, Florida, of course, but this is even going further down south. When you look at the next country, Italy was obviously one of the most devastating countries hit by COVID. The United States is the absolute worst. Coming in number 3 right now, Brazil.
Yeah.
Brazil is getting, Sao Paulo is seeing such a devastating outbreak right now, and they have a president who's the same as our president. He doesn't believe it's anything. Reporters are like, what are we going to do about this? And he's like, what do you want me to do about it?
Copycat president.
Exactly.
So the moral of the story is wear your fucking mask.
Wear your fucking mask.
And social distance.
And also, like, if you're in a state that's like, oh, it's not a big deal, it is a fucking big deal, and wake the fuck up.
And if you come to our state or New York or New Jersey, you better quarantine for 14 days.
And it won't be in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. So anyway, it is, it was.
Wait, hold on, time out.
Yeah.
Chris, how have you been? It's been a while. What's going on in your life?
We saw him last week. No,
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 we
I wasn't here last week.
Thank God, it was nice.
Bitch, I was gone for like 3 straight months.
I know. It was nice.
No, I've been good, been busy. I know I said it before, but I was kind of assuming it. But I did get the email that my diploma is on its way, so I did actually get my associate's degree. I did. I thought
Can we display it in the studio for a little hot minute?
surely.
Okay.
I haven't received it yet, but I got the email that I have fulfilled the requirements of my degree program. So that was pretty cool. Other than that, it's just really staying busy with working between the 2 jobs. Connecticut started its indoor dining. I'm taking it very seriously there, making sure I clean everything. And I work in Massachusetts. That Commonwealth takes it very, very seriously up there. Not only do the staff, but the guests who come into the restaurant they're always wearing their masks. If I walk up to a table, they put their mask right back on. They're very conscious about it, and they are working together. I don't go anywhere in Massachusetts without seeing people with a mask on.
And seriously, it's like nobody wants to see their state shut down again, right?
Right.
So it's like, do what you got to do and be part of the solution, not part of the ignorance and problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that hard? No, it's not.
Heard.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to quickly mention it was Pride weekend. We weren't able to celebrate Pride physically, but there were a lot of amazing events that were going on online. And first and foremost, I want to wish my boys here on the table a very happy Pride,
Thank you.
and of course our listeners. Happy Pride to you all. I hope that you were able to make the best of the situation in the month of June and were able to engage with our fellow community online. A lot of amazing events that I had an opportunity to sit around and watch because we're in quarantine. We're not doing anything, right? We're still technically in quarantine. And so happy Pride. Happy Pride to all of you out there. We've got a couple of stories regarding, the LGBT community, obviously, as we always do, and surrounding Pride. One of those stories, of course, comes to you by the pridesource.com. The U.S. House of Representatives last Friday approved a bill that would designate Pulse Nightclub a national memorial. The press release that the U.S. Rep. Darren Soto, Val Demings, and Stephanie Murphy released notes that House Resolution 3094 grants a federal designation honoring the 49 lives taken on June 12th of 2016, as well as the survivors, first responders, and the entire Central Florida community. Soto, Demings, and Murphy are Democrats who represent the Orlando area in Congress. And I think that, given how much time we've spent on this show talking about and honoring those that we lost, it is a fitting memorial for them, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that it does not say the numbers of the votes.
They did not. Obviously, you know that this is going to be a very party line vote, right?
Mhm.
And of course, Democrats have the majority, so you know how that plays out.
In the House.
It's worth noting that this needs to go to the Senate for a vote there, and it also needs to be passed in that House. And the hashtag Not My President, who's sitting in the Oval Office, would need to sign it into law if it were to become a thing. And we're hoping it does. But I won't hold my breath from the administration. Um, but lately, I've been really surprised and really amazed at what's coming out of the
Yeah,
Supreme Court.
100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And so
with the Chief Justice.
you just never know how things are going to end up. So keep hope going. There's always a way to keep things like this alive.
And it's important to reach out to your representatives.
That's right.
Show your appreciation for HR 3094. That's the name of the bill. And then to reach out to your senators, because the next step is this bill is going to head to the Senate for hopefully their approval. And then, of course, to the desk in the Oval Office.
Well, if Mitch McConnell even lets
the vote happen.
Yeah.
Lets it go to committee before the committee votes whether or not they're going to vote for it on the floor.
Exactly.
So we'll see how that turns out. Another amazing thing that happened over this weekend, it being Pride Weekend in New York, and also celebrating the 51st anniversary of the Stonewall uprising, is that Stonewall wasn't sure if they were going to be able to reopen their doors come time when it was time to reopen the state of New York. And there was a donation made. A $250,000 donation was made to ensure that Stonewall, when it's time to reopen, was able to do so in a way that could still service the LGBT community like it has since the inception of the modern day revolution for gay men, women, lesbian, transgender folks all over the U.S. And I think it's just an incredible thing. Thank you. The organization that made the donation, I have the name here. Excuse me, where'd it go? And of course, this always happens when we go live on air. So here's a quote. So it says, Stonewall is the cornerstone of LGBTQ history, and it must be protected. LGBTQ history in is American history. The Gill Foundation, the LGBTQ rights group that made the donation, said in a statement Sunday on the 51st anniversary of the uprising. So it is the Gill Foundation that made that donation to Stonewall.
And that's so important because Stonewall is an icon and a beacon of hope, not only for people of the LGBTQ plus community here, whether they be in New York or across the country, but really across the globe. Even being at Christopher Day parade in Munich, there were people who are marching during their pride with stuff referring to Stonewall. And it's so important that this donation was made to keep it open because unfortunately so many businesses have not been able to. And I saw this, I have a Canadian news app on my phone, of course. And I saw this the other day. It was actually posted. Well, this article was posted today, but it was COVID-19 forces the closing of Fredericton's only LGBTQ nightclub. And this is the Boom nightclub in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Toby and I,
did you go?
We did. We went there. It was on I believe it was a Wednesday or a Thursday night. So it wasn't, it wasn't like hopping or anything, but we came really close with the bartender. I actually found him through my messages. We're friends. His name is Bruce Dion. I mean, obviously he's no longer employed there, but it was a really great, comfortable atmosphere. Everyone really wanted to talk to each other. Something that was really cool was everyone was waiting for the foosball table to become available.
The what?
The foosball table.
Foos?
Yeah, foosball.
Canada.
What is foosball?
Foosball, like table soccer.
With the poles.
Yeah.
So of course they call it foosball.
It's called foosball.
Oh Lord have mercy.
So I just want to give a little bit more of a plug to the Gill Foundation. So the Gill Foundation believes people should be treated equally regardless of who they are, who they love. That's why they support efforts at the state and national level to better the lives of Americans. Started in 1994 by a software entrepreneur, Tim Gill, the Gill Foundation is one of the nation's leading funders of efforts to secure full equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. This is an amazing foundation that people can apply for funding through. So if you go to gillfoundation.org, you can find more information about them, but it's one of the foundations, and there are a lot of foundations that support LGBTQ rights, but this foundation specifically supports the LGBTQI plus community. And it's amazing to see. I didn't even know about the Gill Foundation. So this is amazing to hear about. So thank you for sharing that story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're welcome. And, I think that
and their home state is Colorado.
Hello. Oh, so maybe I shouldn't say this. No, I'm not gonna say it. Speaking of Colorado, but I can't say it. Sorry, guys. I can't say what happened over the weekend. I'll tell my boys in private. But anyway, do we have anything else that we want to mention before we start wrapping things up for phase 1, or should I say segment 1? Nick, do you have anything?
I'm going to just read this last little bit about the Gill Foundation.
Go for
Tim
it.
Gill and the Gill Foundation believe that engaging, educating, and inspiring donors in the LGBTQ movement is critical to achieving full equality. We work hard to broaden the base of LGBT and allied donors who are knowledgeable about nonprofits and the importance of their work. Our Outgiving network. So if you go to Outgiving, you'll find more information about how you can give as a potential donor. So yeah, no, I'm going to apply.
That's
Unemployment.
Of course he is. And you would be great at that, though.
I know. I want to work for a gay organization.
It's something that would totally like drive you to a new stratosphere.
Yeah, and if somebody says no to me, I'll be like, sit down, bitch.
Let me read you all the colors of the rainbow. Yeah. So make sure that you go and check them out if you are willing and feeling, charitable. It is a great organization to give. As you can see, this money will help keep afloat one of our biggest and most recognized places in where our revolution began. Right, our modern day revolution began.
It's like just really amazing to see that there are not only people that are finally standing up for what's important and what's real when it comes to social rights and individual rights, but now we have foundations, like people that are literally pumping money into a foundation to support something, and that is right here in our home country of the United States. There are people out there that are trying just as hard as we are to get the message across, but this is different because they're getting money to people who need it.
That's right.
And that's what's really amazing. And I know I keep harping on the Gill Foundation, but I don't think I've seen an LGBTQ plus specific foundation besides this.
And now we have. And maybe we should get someone who represents the foundation to come talk about it on the show. You're gonna work on that, my dear?
Yeah, when I get a job, I'll represent.
Oh, well, true. All right, so listen, guys, we have an amazing, amazing message for all of you folks out there. Unfortunately, because of COVID and moving and a lot of moving parts that were happening, we weren't able to get Dr. G on the show this month, right, in time for Pride. But we're super excited because the great doctor, of course, agreed to come on the show anyway. And, he's always special that way. He always really goes out of his way to make sure that our audience and, of course, ourselves, because he loves us, feel special and welcomed. And he sent a personalized message for all of you listeners out there. And, of course, for the team here that sits behind the desk here at Digital Stream Radio Studios for GayTalk 2.0 and LGBT podcasts. And so I want to play that message for you. This is Dr. G wishing us all a happy Pride.
Happy Pride. This is Dr. Evan Goldstein. I am reaching out to GayTalk 2.0 and all its listeners. I wish you guys a great month. I think we all have a lot to be thankful for, but we have a lot of work to do ahead of us. So stay focused on our mission, and we at Bespoke Surgical are doing our duty day in and day out to make sure that everybody's asses are exactly where they want to be. All right, stay safe out there, and happy Pride once again.
Butt and duty. I got those.
Yay.
I got the puns. I freaking love him, right? He's just such a handsome man. And
can we also say that they came out with the butt and body scrub? The Future Method came out with the butt and body scrub, which I want.
I think we need to get samples.
I need a new Future Method.
Oh, you need.
I'm sure you do.
I left it at the ex's house.
Oh, I have it over there if you want it. I was going to give it to somebody else, but you can have it.
Well, just like you did with my
he needs
my
everything.
tushy.
Well, I mean, if you show up,
Well,
This is when I was here.
Well, first of all,
She gifted my tushy to someone.
that box over there was mine.
Are you talking about my box?
But you gifted it last week, if you don't remember.
I did. I gifted it to someone.
And now
And
we're
that
re-gifting
someone
it to somebody who actually needs it because, you don't clean out very well.
Well, the other one needs it too, right?
It got caught on
Anyway.
my foot. Wait, did we talk about that?
No, and we're not going to.
Okay.
We're not gonna do that.
That's probably a good
Nicholas.
I want the
idea.
duty deets.
All right, so we'll do that on break. Ladies and gents, we're going to leave you with some music because when we come back, we have, of course, our guest, David Adjmi is going to join us to talk about Lot 6, a memoir. Here's some music. We will be right back.
Greeted by a new sunrise. Tomorrow's hopes are in my eyes. Paints horizons in the sky that's meant for me, meant for me. Ready now to face the day. Done with fears of yesterday. Waited long enough to say I'm on the way. I'm on the way. I believe. I believe. There is more to me than surface. I believe, I believe. Greeted by a new sunrise. Tomorrow's hopes are in my eyes. Paints horizons in the sky that's meant for me, meant for me. I believe in love at first sight. 'Cause some things are worth the fight. 'Cause some you learn to say goodbye, like letting go. I believe. I believe. There is more to me than surface. I believe. I
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from the break. That was, of course, Believe by Going Deeper, featuring Davis Mallory, which, of course, has been a previous guest of ours here on the show. And he's always, really involved in all the music that he does. And he always reaches out to us and says, hey, listen, I want to feature the music on your show. And so we always have him back. And he's such a great artist. So we're super excited that he really takes the time to engage with us on the show here.
Once on Gay Talk, you're always on Gay Talk.
That's right.
That's a
your
family.
And so now that Trish is back, we can go ahead and move along. So joining us now, of course, is our guest, David Adjmi. He's the author of Lot 6, a memoir in where he recounts his tumultuous search for identity. Spanning decades, this vibrant chronicle unspools what he calls a Dickensian story of self-invention inside a complicated framework of friendship and family. We're super excited to have him on the show. Thank you for joining us, David. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm self-isolating like everyone.
Self-isolation it's a beautiful thing right now, given some of the statistics that are coming out of some of these states that reopened, some a little too early, and you're just starting to see shit go all over the place. So,
And
I
where are
agree.
you trimming in from?
I'm in LA.
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to see stuff in California get a little bit, sort of kind of crazy. Am I correct in saying that you guys are seeing an upsurge again?
It's so bad. It's terrible. And you know what? I took a walk yesterday in Santa Monica with a friend of mine. We had our masks on, and I would say at least 2/3 of the people we passed didn't have masks, didn't do anything to like walk around us. We were sort of like, it was like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. We were just like zooming from side to side, trying to get away from everybody. It was not fun and kind of alarming because, yeah, it's worse than it was in April. And that's when I think when we had our last big peak was in April, and it's gotten even worse. So it's scary.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier in the show when we first started. We were talking about the fact that California and the West Coast were one of the first states to report COVID cases, and then it just ballooned from there. And to see a state that was so conscious about what was going on early on see a resurgence is really scary for some of the other states that still haven't fully reopened, and we may be heading in that direction.
Well, we have no leadership, and that's the problem. We have no national leadership, and I think we're all getting mixed messages from everybody. Like Gavin Newsom was saying to us, "Oh gosh, we're not going to." He was being very stringent in the beginning, and making really specific and clear rules. But I think the businesses freaked out, and I think everyone started worrying about the economy. And I think we're now in this very interesting philosophical debate about, do we care that we're losing like hundreds of thousands of lives in this country because of the economy? Is that what we care about?
Right. The economy is so important to everyone. It runs our daily lives, but if you're dead, you can't contribute to it.
That's correct. Yeah.
So, David, let's jump right into our conversation.
Well, let's start with, I'm Nick.
Well, that's where I was going, but sure. This is Nick over here. I'm Tom.
I'm Chris.
Hi.
And we are 3 of the 4 hosts for Gay Talk. Our friend Elsie couldn't join us today, but we're super excited to have you. So first and foremost, before we start talking about your book, Lot 6, a memoir, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can go ahead and jump into our conversation.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I am a playwright now. This is my first book. This is my first work ever of prose, actually, long form prose. But I'm known mainly as a playwright. I've had my plays done all over the world, at the Royal Shakespeare Company, at the Royal Court in London and Lincoln Center, and I have a new play that's supposed to go to Broadway in the spring, if there's ever going to be a Broadway.
Hold on, time out. What play?
It's called Stereophonic, and it's a play that I wrote. It's a play with music. It's a long play. It's 4 acts, and the music is by a guy named Will Butler, who's from the band Arcade Fire. Okay. And it's about a rock band in 1976 recording an album, and it's set in a music studio. That's awesome. All I'll say about it. Yeah, I'm excited about it. If it happens, I mean,
there will be a time. There will be normal. We'll have a new definition, but we will get there eventually.
Yeah, I know. There was a story published today that unfortunately the news says that Broadway is not scheduled to reopen until January 2021 now, as a result of everything that's going on. And we think about all the playwrights and all the people that work on Broadway and all the actors that do amazing work and how that will impact the industry. Do you think that Broadway can survive such a long off season?
I think it has to survive. I don't really know what it's going to look like. I am certain that there will be theaters that will shut down. Maybe not Broadway theaters, but off Broadway. I mean, that's really where the lifeblood is of the American theater, is off Broadway, off Broadway, and regional theaters all over the country, and there are some really great ones. And I don't know what it's going to look like exactly, and I don't know how we're going to. I think nobody knows. We're just sort of like hypothesizing into a void. I have these conversations with my producers, and it's just so unclear. Fauci is saying that there could be a vaccine at the end of the year, but that's very optimistic, I think. So I don't know. I think January feels optimistic. Maybe my show is supposed to open in March, but maybe fall, late summer.
Yeah.
It's just we're dealing with so many unknowns. It's kind of hard to even say.
And it is true. Like Fauci was being optimistic, and he is saying that a vaccine might not even be enough, so that might take some more time. But the sad thing is, the impact on theater, like theater with COVID, is at the edge of losing its intimacy. These really small theaters where you really feel part of the show, those are the things that are going to be at risk of never opening their doors again. And it's really heartbreaking being someone who's Trish and I have gone to a show before in New York, and we just love those small theaters that really are the heart of the art, that those are the ones at risk of never opening their doors again.
But it's actually not just small theaters. It's regional theaters.
Good point. No, exactly. Absolutely.
It's every single theater, because you cannot put people in a venue where they're not 6 feet apart. You just can't do it, which means you can't sell enough tickets to actually make money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, theater itself could potentially die for a while because of this.
I mean, this is the argument that people are having right now. I don't know, but I think you're right that the intimacy of the theater and this feeling of an audience as an organism, that it's actually not just like a bunch of people and like sitting 6 feet apart, but that there's something about the liturgy of theater and this idea that we all come together and congregate as a group. That's part of what makes it so powerful. So then to have all these like strange cues and signals that we have to sort of stay away from each other and be very conscious of not being near each other. I wouldn't want to open a show in that kind of environment. I feel like it would be so counter to the spirit of what I'm trying to make.
Right, because you're going to think about guidelines and not the beauty of what the piece is.
But there's this weird thing where when you go into a movie theater and there's nobody there, you're excited about it.
Right.
But you walk into a theater and there's nobody there and you're like, oh.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely.
Like, being in a theater for live theater at a regional theater on the Broadway level, off Broadway, off Broadway, it doesn't matter. If you walk into a space and there's nobody there, you're like, I don't feel as connected to this piece as I should be.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important.
Absolutely. And same with my love, if you go to see, a symphony, if you go to see your favorite orchestra, like they're also going to be feeling an impact from this. And I agree with that 100%.
So anyway, theater aside, let's talk about your book, because it's great.
Thank you.
So Lot 6, tell us a little bit about why you wrote it and what it's about.
Well, I wrote it because a publisher asked me to write it, which is a weird thing in and of itself. But I had a play that opened in New York at Lincoln Center, and there was an article about me in the paper, and these publishers read the article, saw the play, and just asked me to write it, which is weird because I haven't ever written prose, and I really didn't have like a very like singular story to tell. So I was sort of a little bit weirded out by it. I didn't understand what they were getting at or why they wanted me to do it, and I sort of rejected the whole thing for a while and said, no, I don't want to do this. And then I agreed to do it somehow. I don't know, maybe it was the money. They gave me a nice advance. So I thought, all right, well, this will be kind of prestigious. I'll be this like guy who wrote a book, I'll do it. So that's how and then what was the other question you have for me? It was why did I write it? And then, what is it about?
Yeah, exactly. Wait, hold on. Can I ask? So was this about Stunning?
Yes, this was. So the play, Stunning was the play. That was like my debut in New York. And it was a play about these Sephardic Syrian Jews, which is this community that I come from. And it's a very marginal community. My community is in Brooklyn. So it's like a really marginal community in Brooklyn. And I wrote a play about it thinking, okay, no one's going to really put this play on. This is a really weird subject for a play. No one knows what this community is. Like, why would they want to see this or produce this? And then, Lincoln Center called and said, oh, no, we want to produce it. And things kind of snowballed from there. And a lot of people from this community that I'm from took the F train and went to Lincoln Center and saw this play. And the play is actually quite caustic and funny and intense and kind of devastating, and has gay themes. And I think the community that I'm from is fairly homophobic and right wing, I want to say. So it felt like a real clash. It was intense. But so that was the play that HarperCollins editors saw and asked and said, oh, you should write a book about this, or about yourself, about your life. But I said, I actually don't have anything more to say about this community. And they said, well, what if you wrote a piece about self-invention? And I thought, okay, I like that, because I did have to invent myself. And at first it was going to just be a series of essays about artists that inspired me and helped me to find myself in the mirror of art. But I think as it went on, it became less academic and less abstract and less, because I thought initially, oh, it'll be this kind of like really heady, brainy, critical theory, art theory thing. And as I kept going, I was like, no, there's no skin in the game, and this is bullshit. And I have to be completely honest about my life. And so the memoir aspect of it took the foreground, and the art criticism stuff became kind of background. But it is a book about this community that I come from, and this very, very, to use a cliche, dysfunctional family that I come from, and feeling very damaged and broken and closeted and messed up, and sort of going, okay, like, how am I going to turn myself into a person? Like, this stuff that I'm being fed and that is supposed to be nourishing me is killing me. So how can I fill myself up with some kind of substance that's going to propel me into an actual life that I can live? Right. And where do I get that stuff? And what are the values that that I can absorb that would determine the kind of life I want to have? And what are the aesthetics of that life? And how do I know if those are the right aesthetics? And so it really is this very kind of granular, step-by-step process of me making a lot of mistakes and humiliating myself, and sort of, and it's funny and really sad. And it's showing sort of how I kind of came into myself as a gay guy and as an artist.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You mentioned that, religion obviously played a very, very big role in the decision that you made to reinvent yourself. Can you speak a little bit about the dynamics as to why?
Well, I think, one of the things I realized writing the book was I was so absolutely allergic to Judaism, the way it was taught to me. And my parents sent me to this very religious school. They weren't really religious, which was so bizarre. But they wanted me to be religious, because they sort of wanted to, like, they thought maybe like if I became religious, somehow they could absorb it and it would make them more spiritual or something. So I was like this little golden child, like, go to this Jewish yeshiva, and like, go, maybe something will rub off on us. But they never really, my parents just were a little tone deaf to stuff. They just never said, hey, David, like, we're not religious, but this school is, and this is what you need to prepare for. There was no preparation. And I was and there wasn't much conversation in my family about anything. I just sort of tried to take as cues and get really skillful at interpreting things as I went along. That's sort of how I navigated life. And Judaism, the way it was presented in the school, was like so unappealing. It was just kind of like, I mean, we had to say these prayers like, thank you, God, for not making me a woman every morning in front of girls and my female teachers. And I was like, this is so weird. And then we had to, they would just tell us these weird mythological stories about, Noah's son saw him naked, so then God punished him by making his children black. I mean, this is something my teacher taught me, and I was like, what? But I was little. And I knew, I was like, something is really screwy about this. Like, I'm not buying this. You got to like find a new way to sell this to me because I can't get with this stuff. It just seemed really sort of dark. But I think the school that I was at, it was not a progressive school. It was very right wing. And I think there was a kind of fundamentalist bent to it, although I can't say it was super fundamentalist, but it was conservative enough that I was like, it was the conservative edge that really drove me bananas as a kid. And I needed to not be in that kind of repressive environment. So I just got really shut down and I kind of split off and I had this secret life where I just had my own thoughts and my own feelings. And then I just performed whatever they told me to perform. So I became kind of like, I don't know, I don't even know if introvert is the word. I just became very secretive. You know,
Oh,
I
you shut
was
down.
closeted. Yeah, I was shut down and I was like closeted about everything. My closetedness like was multi-pronged because it was about Judaism and it was about my sexuality, which I knew from a really, really young age, and I was repressing it. And just everything about who I was and how I felt and like the kind of self I wanted to express. It just, I felt I couldn't be any of that.
So, as an adult today, though, how do you look at Judaism? How do you look at your faith? Do you still practice? Are you following a different venue for it, or
I don't practice Judaism. I really like, I was sort of done with organized religion after I left that school because I dropped out of school at 16 and it just wasn't for me. And I knew that I needed a spiritual like outlet and that I had a deep, intense spiritual hunger, but I knew religion wasn't going to sate that hunger. And that, and in the end, what sated it was art, I think. And I don't know how exactly to describe it, but art is the place where I can access the truth and go to my deepest places and explore like the shadow aspect of things that I think Judaism wants you to dispel, or at least the way it was taught to me. Like, no, don't look at that stuff. And my community of artists are very inclusive and welcoming and open and progressive and interested in being global citizens and good citizens. And I don't like this whole chosen people narrative. It just didn't never, I always found it a little unsavory. Like, what about everybody else? Like, we have to share the world. We're not, let's like all be equal. So I love sort of where I ended up with that. And I feel like my writing really is a spiritual practice, and I don't exactly know how to describe that, but it feels very true to me.
So you spent most of your obviously 70s and 80s experiencing homophobia and
we still
issues
do
with
every day?
religion. I mean, but you experienced it at a time and place in where it's not how we see it today, right? And not only that, I mean, when you think about the 80s alone, you also experienced homophobia at a time where AIDS and HIV was something that was very unknown. It was very crazy. It was very
Prevalent.
prevalent. And um, you used art as a means to find yourself. Can you
Mm-hmm.
talk about that period in your life and what knowledge you had of what was going on around you and how that helped shape your decision to go into art, for example, as a means to escape what you knew deep down inside wasn't something that you needed to be a part of?
But do you like, are you asking about how art helped me to deal with the homophobia, or is it just like how
All of
art
it. I
helped me
mean,
to deal?
think about
Yeah.
growing up in the 80s in the midst of AIDS and HIV
Mm-hmm.
and coming out at such a point in time in where homophobia was just incredibly like in your face,
Right.
right? And especially amidst, you know, what they call grid at the time, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
literally
yeah.
named it something that only happened to gay people. What was your
Right.
thought process when you were saying, okay, I need to redefine myself, I need to find myself, I need to find a space that allows me to be me and creative and not
Right.
have to deal with some of the religious craziness that I had to endure? How do you do that in the midst of all of that?
But
Well,
also
it was
too, sorry,
yeah.
really quick, like in the book, you talk a lot about what culture means to you and
Hmm.
what culture meant to you and your mother and how
Hmm.
that kind of separated you. And I think that ties a lot into what Tommy's talking about.
Hmm. This is such a very big question. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
It's
I'm gonna
loaded.
answer it. I'm gonna answer things, and then I'm gonna take it like a Rorschach, and then see if I can answer it, and then you tell me if I should go answer something else. The stuff about AIDS and gay identity in the 80s, like people don't really understand now. The millennials in particular. I don't know if you guys are millennials, but like, it's not. Someone just emailed me on my Instagram yesterday and said, "Thank you so much for writing your book. Like, people need to explore pre-woke homosexuality and what it means." And another friend of mine said, "I'm gay. Gay people of our generation still have PTSD, and but we've been elided. We've been like we're now invisible because gay marriage is legalized and everyone's hanging out. You know what I mean? And like it's so mainstream and it's so accepted and everyone's so woke and together." But I can't really explain what it was like to be formed in an environment where homophobia was like a kind of oxygen. um I don't even know I don't have the language for it. I still haven't fully processed it, even writing the book. I think I need to keep writing more.
Well,
But
I mean, I'm just meeting you now, and I agree with a lot with what Tom was saying, but I feel like some of the words weren't right on. Like, I feel like it wasn't that your way to escape; it was more your way
mhm.
to embrace who you
but
truly
it
are.
but it really was a tortuous thing, and I didn't I my first the first gesture, like in my late teens and early 20s, was really to escape.
Hmm.
Like I was trying to find a way to become somebody else, meaning straight. I mean, I wanted to be
Right.
straight. I wanted to be this other person. I thought, like, oh, I'll do this. I mean, I had complete cognitive dissonance. I thought, okay, I could just change my sexual
Right.
identity and my orientation. My therapist that I was seeing in when I was in Brooklyn, because the school made me see this therapist because my grades are so bad, was like, "Oh, you can change." He was like, "I'll convert you. You can become married. You'll marry a woman and do all this stuff." And I was like, "Oh, great." And he never really told me what to do. It was kind of like this open-ended promise. And so I just thought, okay, well, then that will be my new trajectory. That's going to be who I'm going to become. But I could never figure out how to sort of make it me. It just never worked. And I kept thinking, like, if I just keep trying to change my aesthetics, change how I dressed, change how I spoke, I had this like magical thinking that like somehow a new me would emerge. Um, and I was really isolated in these experiments that I did, these like social experiments with trying to get people to see me as some new person, and then thinking if I became this new person, if they saw me a certain way, then that's how I would be. Like I just thought like my persona was me,
Hmm.
And it
and that
wasn't even
somehow,
it
yeah,
wasn't even safe at that time to talk about
Right.
who you were and who you were
no,
trying to become, right? And so
no,
it's not like today where you can say, "Oh, well, I'm a gay man and this is what I want to become," and everybody sort of shakes their head and says, "Okay, well, maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. There's someone for that." That's not the conversation that we could have back in the 80s. And I know this because you and I probably grew up in the same space, in the same
yeah.
time. As opposed to my co-hosts here, they're slightly younger, and so they experienced a very large part of what it was like to be prior millennial, homosexual. But it wasn't an easy time to really trying to discover yourself and reinvent yourself.
No, there was no form. There was no like form for it to take. I mean, there were people like Peter Staley or whatever. There were very brave people who somehow were able to build gay identities at a time when it was like you could just be, get the crap kicked out of you
Hmm.
for, being you. Um, but I wasn't that guy. And I was so sheltered where I grew up. I mean, I did grow up in New York, but I grew up in a very insular part of Brooklyn. And I knew only a little bit. I was so apolitical too. I mean, I didn't know anything about AIDS except like it was dirty and disgusting. And you know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
had no context for anything. I was terrified of just being this AIDS ridden person. That's all I knew about being gay. That was the only thing I knew about it. That was what defined being gay in the 80s,
Hmm.
was that you would be like a diseased person. So it was absolutely terrifying to me. And I was just trying to like find like I already had like a screwed up family, and I was like, no, I need something that's going to save me, something that's going to redeem all this crap from my bad childhood. And I thought, well, the best thing to do is be straight. That'll be great, and of course that was not possible, and so it was a tortuous route to get to accept myself. And it was particularly hard because I just didn't have a lot of backing from my family. Like I just didn't have, I was really, really on my own. I didn't have anyone to confide in. I didn't have I wasn't raised with a sense of like respect even in myself or a sense of worth. I was kind of neglected. And so it was just very difficult to find that to locate that worth in myself. And I located it, and the process of my locating it was long and hard, but it came through, I think, art.
So I want to dive a little bit further into your family. And I mean, you're very open in the book about it. And there are moments where your sister's like, oh no, they're fucking you up. Our parents are fucking you up. They're screwing you up. But I want to talk a little bit more about beyond the fact that you're a gay man. Let's humanize the concept itself. People grow up in situations like that all the time. How do you move through it? Why is that so important to talk about?
Well, I can answer the first question. I mean, how I moved through it was, first of all, I think the culture changed around me. I mean, there was a sea change in the 90s. From 1990 to like the late 90s, life changed for gay people in this country. And it had a lot to do with the representations, because Madonna with her Truth or Dare documentary, that was huge. My best friend at USC came out to me like 6 months after we saw that documentary together. That was a huge deal. Will and Grace was a huge deal. Ellen coming out was a huge deal. These are like sort of pop culture figures that totally changed the landscape. So that emboldened me. Like that made me feel like, oh, okay, like I could be a part of this. There is maybe something I could carve out for myself, and I'm not going to be perceived as just a piece of crap. You know what I mean? I can actually point to that and show like people in my family or whatever. And the other big thing was that I went to a school called Sarah Lawrence. I transferred there from USC, and it's a very gay friendly, amazing place. And I met a lot of gay people there because I didn't know a lot of gay people, openly gay people. And that changed everything for me, just like having some form of community. And it wasn't just like a gay community, it was a community of arty, weird people who were brilliant. That sort of, I still wasn't totally out at Sarah Lawrence, but it loosened things up a little bit for me. So I feel like, yeah, it was a confluence of the culture changing and then where I was and who I started to spend time with, that changed me.
So can we talk about a little bit of your process through art, and how that literally took you to the point where now you have a successful play under your belt. You're writing a book about your experience. Tell us a little bit about how you got there.
Well, again, that was also a very tortuous experience. Like, I thought I was going to be a filmmaker. I really wanted to be a filmmaker. I grew up watching plays, but I sort of stopped going to plays when I was a teenager, and I became obsessed with films. And I went to USC thinking, okay, I'm going to be a filmmaker. But the world of film at USC, at least the way it was presented, and what Hollywood was, like mainstream cinema, just like it didn't appeal to me. And I knew I was a little bit weirder. And when I transferred to Sarah Lawrence, I started going to see plays again. One of the plays that I saw was a play called 6 Degrees of Separation. And that was a very important play for me to see. That changed my life because I felt that there was something first of all, it was a great play, but there was also something embedded in the story of that about abjection and alienation, people who feel they don't belong anywhere, people who are marginalized, who want to be a part of something and they don't know what to do, and their lives are, you know, crumbling underneath their feet. There was something, and this like feeling of disconnection from the world, that those themes and the way they were rendered, I just thought it was breathtaking at the time. And it like shattered me. And I just had this feeling that that's what I wanted to do. And I loved the language and the rhythms of theater. Like it just sort of like, it was intoxicating to me. So I think right after that, I started writing my own plays. Oh, and of course, Angels in America. That was huge,
That was
obviously.
God.
Yeah, that was huge. I
hit-
saw that 3 or 4 times.
Ooh,
I just kept seeing it. I
Yeah.
just kept seeing it. I couldn't stop going to see that play.
that was
It was so incredible. And the production was so riveting and electrifying and amazing. And so, and the language and the ideas, like it just was so challenging and so brazen and so smart and so wild and kaleidoscopic. I was just like, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. So, you know, and then of course the plays that I wrote were so timid. It was so stupid. I started writing and I was like, I just
You
would try to
actually
like
sound like a playwright right now. So they're not stupid because they asked you to write a book about it. So
No, but I'm talking about the first plays that I did, like the very early when I first started writing plays. Like what came out was like this fake, like clever, like witty, thin version of me. It was like a very shallow version of me. I was really scared to plumb the depths of who I was. I just didn't want people to make fun of me. And, you know, all the stuff from childhood comes out when you're an artist. Like, you have to be brave enough to be like, no, this is my point of view. And I had banked my entire life on not having a point of view. So I could just like skate between the, you know, live between the cracks. No one will call me out. No one will like say anything bad about me. No one will reject me if I can just hide. And as an artist, and especially a writer, you can't hide. You have to have a point of view. You have to be willing to have a reckoning with yourself and with life and the world. And so that's what I had learned to do. Because I looked at what I was writing and I was like, this sucks. And I was like, why does this suck so much? It sucks because I'm not really being honest. Well, what would it mean to be honest? And that's when I began this little descent down the staircase of my inner self. And I started looking at the skeletons in my closet and all this damage. And I was like, I got to write about this. I have to figure out a way to deal with this because I want to really do this for real. And so that was like the beginning.
you talk a lot about in the book. You talk a lot about how situations or conversations would really kind of, you felt them so deeply. Your emotions were so connected to whether it was your brother and sister talking about a movie or whether it was a story about this or that. And I'm wondering if that had anything to do with the name of the book, because I know that the name of the book means a lot to your storyline in general.
Yeah, I mean, well, the name of the book is called Lot 6. Lot 6, it's a very convoluted thing, but basically for Syrian Sephardic Jews, Syrian Jews had their own slang. And a lot of the slang was premised on, they were all sort of, a lot of them were worked in either textiles but a lot of them worked in electronics stores, like the ones that flanked Midtown Manhattan. They sold cameras and stuff. They were like tourist joints. And they would put what was called lot numbers on the backs of cameras and Walkmans because they didn't want to put prices because then they could negotiate, get more money. And the lot numbers would encode the wholesale price of what they were selling. So usually the lot numbers doubled the price. So lot 6 was code for 3, which meant queer, right? 3 isn't a $3 bill, as in queer. So, so I grew up here. I mean, it was like saying faggot. If someone's a lot 6, right? That was how they addressed it. And and my siblings were a lot older than I was. I kind of came along when they were already about to leave the house. I mean, they were teenagers when I was born. So, and they were bigoted in the way that people were bigoted in that part of Brooklyn during that era. And that, yeah, I did hear that stuff. I did see like I did hear them speaking that way about gay people and about Black people and about all kinds of stuff. And it definitely, and I was a hypersensitive kid, more so than maybe other kids. I just internalized stuff very, very deeply. And it definitely had a long-term effect on me. There's no question. Because these were the adults in my life. I had parents, and then my siblings were like parents as well. And so I was looking to them for guidance. And when it's like my teachers saying that stuff when I was in the Jewish school, like, you guys are giving me the wrong information, or if it's not wrong, then something's wrong with me deeply.
Yeah.
Like, something is deeply wrong here, and it's either with me or you guys. And either way, it's unbearable.
It's
Yeah.
pretty intense. So let me ask you one last question before we wrap up. If someone could pick up this book and get something positive out of it, or something that they could carry with them for the rest of their life, what would it be?
I think that this book, when I didn't know what it was when I was writing it, but by the time I finished it, I knew that I was writing a book for people who felt on the outside, for people who felt alienated and alone, or people that felt they had no hope, or people that felt really damaged to the point of no return, and didn't feel that their voices were valuable or that there was anything salvageable from themselves. My book is really saying, no, there is something salvageable. Not only that, like, your position, it's a privileged advantage. This is your gift. If you choose to use it that way, you can turn it into something extraordinary. There's an alchemy that you can create out of these really dark, difficult situations and make something amazing out of it. And so that's I learned that when I was writing the book about myself. That was the gift of the book for me.
I just from me, I think the gift of the book, yes, that is one of them, but it's so human, it's so real, and it makes you realize that your story, you're not alone. And there are a lot of people that have similar stories or have similar experiences, whether it's family, whether it's coming out, whether it's religion. But there is something that everybody can connect to in this book that will really help people. This book can change lives
It's humbling.
because it's not just a story about your life. It's the reality of what not only Jewish people go through, or Syrian people go through, or gay people go through. It's about living with a real family, living with your demons, living with everything, and being honest about it.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for, first and foremost, writing this book and sharing your story. Because as Nick said, this could be the difference between life and death for many people. And reading about experiences like this and knowing that on the other end of that book, there is someone who came out stronger and better for those experiences, to the point where you were able to actually write that book. That's incredible.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for having me on the show. I
Oh, you're
loved it.
welcome. It is our pleasure. And as Chris said before, once you join us, you're stuck with us. So
Yeah.
you are pretty much
Sorry.
family.
Yes.
And yes, absolutely.
Yes!
anything that's happening. Hey, listen, you want to come on the show and talk about? You've got anything new going? Let us know. Let us know. Seriously, it is, we as queer people have to support our community and the endeavors of our queer fellow brothers and sisters in all aspects of our community, to ensure that our voices are heard and that we uplift each other, because that is the only way that we're going to get through what we're going through right now.
Here, here.
Right. So, David, thank you so much for joining us. It's been our pleasure. We're going to make sure that all the information for the book, along with where it's available, how people can get it, is put on tonight's post so that they could have that information. But before we let you go, can you let our listeners know how they can reach you? Do you have any social media they can reach out to, a website perhaps that you can promote?
Yeah, my website is davidadjmi.com, and I am on Twitter. I think I'm Adjmi, and I'm on Instagram as David Adjmi.
Fantastic. So
Yeah.
once again, thank you so much for spending some of your time with us. You're in LA. I'm sure that you have beautiful weather. It is what, 7:20 here, so I'm thinking it's probably like 3:30 or 4:30 On your end, go enjoy
Yeah,
the rest of
it's-
your afternoon. Wear your mask.
Stay
and
safe, stay healthy.
I will. You too.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Well, ladies and gents, of course, that was David Adjmi, and he is the author of Lot 6, a memoir. Make sure that you check out our tonight's post for all the information available on that book. He truly was, it's incredible, what people do, what people can do when you face your demons, right?
Yeah, no, I think what I love about the book, and I still have to finish it, but like what I love about the book is that it's not only about, his experience being gay. There are parts about that, yes, of course, but like it's so human. It's like, oh, I remember that moment when I closed my door and locked myself in my room because my parents were fighting. I remember that moment when my brother and my dad got into a huge fight, and I was sitting at the bottom of the stairs, nervous that my brother was gonna whatever, because you just don't know.
Yeah.
It's so human and so real, and it makes you feel like, oh wait, my life isn't a shit show. This is sadly normal.
Yeah, and it happens to a lot of people, and that's a lot of the things that people need to realize is that when you're going through something, there are well over 8 billion people on this earth.
Yes.
Chances are, at least a quarter of those people have gone through what you're going through, and it's just gives you a little bit of perspective in the sense that you may feel like your world is coming to an end. You may feel like you have no recourse or you have no out in whatever situation that you're in. But the truth of the matter is that there's always a way out, and there's always a way to come out stronger on the other end if you're willing to work hard for it.
Yeah.
And that's just pretty much it. So we've got a couple of more things that we need to wrap up, of course. Do you have anything that you want to cover tonight, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
All right. So we're going to move into Mama Kim's Minute. You do have something that you need to do for us.
I do's.
You're going to give us a little timer, and our lovely co-host Trish is going to go over Mama Kim's Minutes and all her stories. So
Is she ready?
I don't know. My story got skipped. So
whoa. Well, stop. That's why I said okay. Go for it.
So
She's nasty.
so I read
No,
this.
she's not. I am.
This Medium article. It's called Faggot.
Oh.
And it really kind of hit me hard, and it made me think about a lot of things, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of what happened. Justin Sayre, who is he's an actor, he's pretty famous.
Mhm.
He's gay, and he claims that he's been called a faggot at least twice a month for years, right? So this happened again to him, and he finally went off on somebody. And this happened after the fact that this one individual was harassing an African American couple. And then they reconnected, the African American couple and him, and they had a laugh and they connected. But I think what's brilliant about what we just talked about and this article is that we talk about it on the show all the time. There is still so much happening out there, and we still live in fear. We still think about, well, if I'm alone at night, what if I get gay bashed? What if somebody calls me this? What if somebody calls me that? We still live in fear, even though we have legal rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's so powerful about not only his book, but this article. It's that we're human, and we're still dealing with so much discrimination, not just in the gay community, but in the gay community of color. They're getting it worse. In the trans community of color, worse. I mean, like, the fact that people still use the word faggot blows my mind.
It's mind blowing, but it's and you know what the sad thing is? It's that we even use it in our own community to when we're talking about, when you walk into public, like, hey bitch,
I don't really.
what's going on? I've heard it used, and you know what? I don't have the energy to be like, you really shouldn't use that word because I probably had a very rough week, and all I want to do is just have my drink and just sort of kind of deal with my demons and go home. But, if I can and when I can, open my mouth and just be like, you know what, don't use that word. And especially if you're in the community. And, it's just like, for example, when I hear a member of our community use a word like tranny, right? It's so, um, so you have transvestites, you have transsexuals, but the word tranny to me is so abrasive and demeaning in the sense that it takes away from the fact that identity, what it says to me is when someone in our community uses the word tranny to describe someone who's either transgender or transvestite or whatever it is that you want to be, right? Gender identity is so important. You are who you are because that's what you believe you are, and that's important. But whenever I hear someone use a word like that within our community, I think that it diminishes the fact that this individual has chosen an identity for themselves.
Well, and I also think that there's something that he says in this article that's kind of important because we talk about it on the show, but the reality is a lot of heterosexuals or cisgender individuals that are not of the LGBTQI plus community don't realize that we were raised in a world that hated gay people. They made them the butt of the joke. They questioned their ability to love, to have families, to have jobs, to keep their evil disease from spreading to children. Like, literally, they have continually made the LGBTQI community less than by denigrating them continuously.
And then, the thing is too, is like, so if you look at stand-up comedy back in the 80s, stand-up comedy in the early 90s, and even into the late 90s, you start seeing people, for example, who would use, oh, you're so gay, or this or that, in a way that was demeaning to the community, but it wasn't being seen as demeaning by the population at large, right? Because it was funny. It was, like you said, we were the butt of a joke for so many years. And then you start running...
We still are, though.
And we still are. But then you start running into situations like, for example, Kevin Hart, when he started using derogatory language against our community in some of his jokes, and he got serious backlash for it. And you're starting to see people fight back. And I think that's what we need to do.
And it's also important to point out in here that this person said that, he grew up being told that God hates him, that he's responsible for AIDS, 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, and now COVID. And you also have to remember, looking back, I believe it was the mayor of either Houston or Dallas. She was elected, and she was a lesbian, and I believe it was that. What's that skeleton cunt's name? Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter blamed Hurricane Harvey on the election of this lesbian.
Oh God, she needs to go away.
But yeah, it's sad that not only are we blamed as, we're the butt of the joke, but people are still to this day blaming us for natural disasters and natural phenomenons which occur naturally.
Shit is going south when she's attacking Trump and Kellyanne Conway looks way better than she does. Shit is happening. Have you
mean
seen
Ann Coulter? Oh, ugh.
So that shit is going south when Ann Coulter is attacking Trump and Kellyanne Conway looks better than Ann Coulter.
Well, I mean, she's as good as a donkey witch could look, I suppose.
Anyway.
Oh my God. All right, so I'm going to leave you with this article before we move on to Mama Kim's Minute. If I can just justify my existence with kindness and care, then perhaps even if you don't agree with my life, you can at least allow me some decency.
Amazing words as we sit here and burn Ann Coulter and Kellyanne Conway.
Well, they're both terrible.
I know.
I don't know how we always but we did. Anyway.
All right, so Christopher, give that girl a timer.
You ready?
Yeah, fine.
Were there some big words?
Maybe.
Not really. All right. And Mama Kim's Minute, go.
All right, everybody, here's Mama Kim's Minute. Number 1, this viral lesbian surprise proposal will make you chuckle. Number 2, this doctor is radically changing people's lives by transforming their assholes. And that is Dr. Evan Goldstein.
I was going to say,
number 3,
we know him.
6 musicians who have asked Trump to leave their music alone. 4, Zillow listing will now show whether LGBTQ people are protected from discrimination in that city. 5, Amazon stops donating to hate groups that said gays try to recruit children.
good.
All right. Other than some cursive,
Yeah,
not
no,
bad.
there was definitely cursive.
Yeah, there
in
was
there.
some
Proud of you.
cursive.
A lot
but
of cursive.
I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but like I'm fine when he's not here, but when he's here, it's like he's gonna make fun of me, so I
is
always
it like
fuck
a
it
little
up.
anxious.
Yeah, I get anxious.
I love that.
It's like Elsie in
I'm
the
honored.
anticipation that she's gonna fuck it up.
I'm honored.
Right? Oh God.
It's
Please
good to
don't.
be back.
All right, so we have a couple of more things that we're going to go through. We've got a Gay Talk Term, of course, brought to you by
GayRealEstate.com. Still the same thing.
Okay.
Cool.
I thought we were going to change it. What happened? No, but all right.
Well,
next
can you all
time.
hurry up and change it? My waist isn't getting
All right.
any smaller.
So I guess I will read your Gay Talk Term today, of course, because I'm the one that selected it. Today's Gay Talk Term is Great Lakes, and it is, of course, the urinals, the big boys' room. And used in a sentence, here's your ticket to the Great Lakes. Another beer.
Interesting.
Yes.
I do have to urinate, so
I know.
I guess that kind of is.
Well, I will give you your ticket to the Great Lakes. There you go.
I'm still working on mine. Thank
All
you.
right.
It's coconut penis flavored. The coconut's very subtle.
Yeah.
I stole that from The Office.
All
My
right.
turn, right?
Yep.
Go for
All
it.
right. So on this day in gay history, brought to you, of course, by
GayRealEstate.com.
I still want unicorn booty.
I know
Me
I missed
too.
it.
I think about it
Booty,
often.
Unicorn Booty. UnicornBooty.com. Huh, no, it
All right,
doesn't
cool.
even exist anymore.
It doesn't.
Uh.
It doesn't. It doesn't. So when June 29th, 2002, in the nation of Croatia held its first gay pride parade, which is excellent news. The pride would take place in the capital city of Zagreb and would go on to be an annual event.
It's not even a word.
I know. Imagine if I try to say it.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Zagreb. Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you love our show, make sure that you go subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting service. By subscribing, you get the latest and greatest of our show delivered right to your favorite device or web browser as soon as our episodes are published. You can also support us on Patreon, which allows you, our supporters, to support the show with a monetary donation, which we collect monthly. And it can be in any denomination of $1 or more. Chris?
Next week, we talk booty holes and a lot more with our in-house butt whisperer, Dr. G, joining us for this month's Tales from the Tail.
Woot, woot.
Thanks, Dr. G. Thank you to our guest, David
Adjmi.
Thank you for joining us
I knew
on
she wasn't
today's
gonna do
episode.
it.
Lot 6 is available on Amazon and in your local bookstores. Check it out. Oh, and don't forget, get your discount today. The Future Method. Each time you clean out with water or enemas, delicate tissues are harmed and cells are damaged, increasing chances of injury and or STDs. The first of its kind doctor-developed formula that gently cleanses before you play without hurting your bum. And now you can use code GayTalk20 for 20% off, valid for one purchase or on subscription per person.
And also, we have a new butt scrub, right?
Oh yeah, but that's
not part of this promotion, but we're going to need to work on that.
I mean, couldn't we use discount? That's kind of another pun in there.
Discount.
I think it would have to be like whole count.
whole count or
Or like a 20%
Maybe-
discount on your whole order.
yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Puns and buns. We got them all here.
Oh God, Christopher.
Yeah, speaking of that, can we please put a rubber on this?
Yes, please.
I really got to use the toilet. I have
Thank
to
you.
go to the Great
Thanks
Lakes.
for announcing.
Great Lakes.
Yes.
See, I used it. I used
So
the
do
word
I.
of the day.
So
I
stop
used it.
talking.
Cool. Alrighty,
You
ladies
can go
and
to Lake
gentlemen.
Superior. I'll go to Lake Erie. You can go to Lake Ontario.
No, I'm going to Lake Ontario.
Well, whatever. Any
Fuck
lake
her.
is fine.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. As always, our show is available on our website, GayTalk20.com, under Show and Episodes. It is also available as a free download on iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher Radio.
Nick announces you can find us on social media. Big surprise. Facebook, GayTalk 2.0. Instagram, GayTalk 2.0. Twitter, at GayTalk20. Email us at GayTalk2.0 @gmail.com. Tom, take it away.
And if you need to reach out to us, you can just head us over to our website and click on the Contact Us tab, located at the top of your web browser.
What happened?
What?
What happened was this hand sanitizer feels like Astroglide.
I was trying to imitate.
Do you remember when
Elsie,
I had
and
to take the-
fucked it up really bad?
Yeah, no, that
And the
was.
sad thing is we're both Latinos.
And also, that's sort of racist, and you're Latino.
Right. A self-hating Latino.
I'm making fun of Elsie, and she's my girl. Leave me alone.
All right, well,
You
Cállate
were
la
so
boca,
close.
Puñeta.
Tom.
Anyway, All right, listen, if you need to reach out to us and send us hate mail, you can do so by visiting our website.
Speak for yourself.
And click on the Contact Us tab located at the top of the web browser. There you can leave comments, you can suggest topics, you can submit a question for the cast or an individual host. By the way, thank you so much for the gentleman who wrote that amazing, beautiful email to Nick. That was amazing. Or you can call us and leave us your question via voice message. You can do so by calling 334-GAY-TALK. If you need those digits, it is 334-429-8255. Don't forget that we do stream live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can access that live stream by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. Thank you, and y'all have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.